I'm convinced that the reason that the Zubaz empire fell to begin with was that everyone had one pair of Zubaz and 47 pairs of pants that their grandma sewed.
Welcome to the iKnowBadeaux podcast.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the iKnowBadeaux podcast. Coming at you from the local 218 studios. I'm here with my brother.
Like a relatively old penny.
Oh, man, the selection of drops is getting good.
Do you have a whole folder now that's just drops for me?
I just keep them along in the actual recording, so I just pick and choose. And part of the problem I have with almost everything is naming files. I always name things really weird. So half of the editing of each episode is just me going, what's this one? And then listening to you say dumb things over. Hey, it's also Gabriel Johnson.
Dave, how are you?
Excellent. Are you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right. It is, of course, the Be Kind Rewind, 1992. All right, so let's get started with the year that was 1992. We last time in 91 we tried to talk about news and it went way off the rails because if you're interested in news from 91, a lot of weird things happened that we did not allow to make the actual episode.
Death and destruction and dismay.
Really depressing.
We'll keep it upbeat for 1992.
Yeah.
The week of February 10th, 1992, saw the conviction of both Jeffrey Dahmer and Mike Tyson.
Yes. In 1 week.
In 1 week.
In 1 week. The other bit of news I wanted to throw in here as well, aside from the Mall of America opening, by the way, this was
92.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Feels like it should be older than that.
It does feel like it should be older than that. This was also the year that George Bush, our president, vomited in the lap of, I believe it was the Japanese. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. He got dizzy and just turned and he's on like a diplomatic mission, we'll call it, and he just turns and vomits right in the
Mission accomplished.
It was the inspiration for Leslie Nielsen's bit in like Naked Gun 33 and a third. He leaned over and did the same thing.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
How do you not know, A, that you're going to vomit, and B, not to do it in the guy next to you's lap?
Especially another.
You got Barbara Bush or some guy you don't have to go home with.
Or just just right there.
I was going the other way. I was like, sorry, honey, you're not going to divorce me over this.
Yeah.
We may go to war.
You don't want a fish sandwich?
Anyways, so 1992. A lot of fun things happening. But let's pull up another one real quick, and then we'll get into music because, of course, music is the soundtrack of our lives. However, I just wanted to say super fast, but this was also the year of Crystal Clear Pepsi. You guys remember Crystal Clear Pepsi?
Crystal clear.
It was a huge success for a very short amount of time, which is kind of the thing for 92.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff in 92, like wildly successful and then no longer successful.
Did it last? How long did it last?
I didn't look up to see exactly how long it lasted.
It had to have been a couple of years.
It was a couple of years. It was doing
They had a lot
well.
of inventory to get rid of.
It did have a lot of inventory to get rid of. But the only reason I bring it up was that I loved it. I thought it was great. I was a kid. I don't know why it was new, right? It was new and it was clear. But I did not know that Coke actually came out with a clear version of Tab. But the whole reason they came out with it was to try and convince people that the clearness was diet, to try and sabotage Crystal Clear Pepsi. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of fun. So, all right, let's get into it. Music. Where do you guys want to start with the music?
I'm going to make you jump.
Kris Kross?
Kris Kross debuted in 1992.
One of the best from 1992.
Just the cultural phenomenon of, hey, look, our pants are on backwards.
Were you a member of the backward pants wearing crew?
I grew up wearing Wranglers. They did not fit backwards.
It didn't matter if they fit going backwards because that's where I'm going to go with this. I was in fourth grade. You were in fourth grade as well. 10-year-olds were the prime age group for flipping all of your clothes backwards because a band had their clothes on backwards. Mm-hmm. Every single boy in my grade school for 2 months was wearing their pants backwards. However, the beauty of that is, I don't know if you know anything about 10-year-old boys, but they don't wear jeans. Evidently you did. Nobody at my school was wearing jeans, so it was just a bunch of boys wearing sweatpants and wind pants and Zubaz.
I wore some backwards Zubaz. Yeah.
So you couldn't even tell that they were backwards. Except for you had just a big bubble in the front that didn't quite work.
Cause inside out is wicked and wicked and wicked and whack.
But yeah, Kris Kross. I mean, gonna make you jump, as well as the other hits.
All of them.
Their second album was
They had a second album?
their second album, which I believe came out the following year, was entitled Da Bomb, if I'm not mistaken, and it definitely was Da Bomb.
Also make ya.
See you later.
Didn't keep going. But anything else on Kris Kross? I mean, is that
I remember they wore their pants backwards.
and their shirts? Don't forget about that, because that was the start of the button-up baseball shirts.
But a backwards shirt is fine. That doesn't matter. When your pants are backwards, it makes going to the bathroom more challenging. It's a
Everything.
whole thing.
Everything.
It's a backwards shirt, nobody cares.
I remember getting to school and then going in the bathroom to turn my pants around because I think I was embarrassed to have my parents see me wearing pants. They wouldn't even be able to tell that it was happening in my Zubaz. Should we talk about Zubaz real quick? Because 1992 is peak Zuba time frame as well. Were you a Zuba guy?
Love Zubaz. I couldn't afford Zubaz. My grandma sold me a couple nice pairs, though.
I'm convinced that the reason that the Zuba empire fell to begin with was that everyone had one pair of Zubas and 47 pairs of pants that their grandma sewed. I had multiple pairs of, and think about that, 10 years old. Can you imagine a 10-year-old right now wearing pants that their grandma sewed?
Yeah.
I can't imagine their grandma sewing.
No, you're absolutely right about that. You are absolutely correct about that. Multiple pairs. Biggest mistake they made. Readily making the...
Yeah, don't sell the prints.
You're selling the prints, and all it is just the prints and elastic. Like my grandma was like, I got this. I got this for sure.
Yeah, we had Gophers branded, Vikings branded.
yeah.
Not branded, but color schemes.
Definitely not branded, because that was the key move that they made, and potentially the mistake as well was, you didn't have the Vikings logo on it. You just had the Vikings colors, general colors. Yeah, that's awesome. What else do we got for music?
Billy Ray Cyrus debut album, Achy Breaky Heart. Extending the life of the mullet at least 2 more years.
At least 2 more years. At least. That's pretty impressive. I in 91 was rocking a mullet, spiked on the top and then long on the back.
Nice.
Scott had a friend, Brandon Doyle, that had a rat tail.
Yes. I don't know about all the way through high school, but to high school for sure, until he was late teens.
Yep.
Rat tail down to his ass.
Yep.
About a quarter of an inch wide.
Yep.
I had a rat tail till about 5th grade or so.
You also had said that No Rain.
No Rain, Blind Melon's debut album with No Rain, which is a kind of a depressing song, or it's written from a depressed point of view, but it's a fun song. It's a good upbeat 90s song.
It reminds me of ska, not in the way that it sounds, but in the fact that the lyrics are depressing, but yet you're doing it in such a hip, fascinating, fun way.
I know it's not sane. It's okay. Just let me have a little fun.
Just a little rain. The other one, too, that I wanted to throw out just super fast was Rump Shaker. Little Wreckx and Effects.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was the first time I remember having a little bit of music that I was like, I don't want my dad to know I have this. Wreckx and Effects, Rump Shaker. And my thing also says Baby Got Back, but I didn't double check that. So that's just an opportunity for us to put more of, Sir Mix-a-Lot in the mix.
That's a good one.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be? All right, let's move on. Anybody got anything from television or anything? Did we do any television?
I didn't write anything down from television. It was a pretty boring year based on my research.
I didn't see anything. I had one that was Hanging with Mr. Cooper. We'll talk about that another time. But if we're gonna talk television, then let's talk sports, because a big thing that happened in 1992 was the Winter and the Summer Olympics were held in the same year, which was crazy.
For the last time ever.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they separated into 94.
Exactly. So big thing from 92 from the Olympics was
The Team USA basketball team,
Oh, yeah.
the Dream Team.
the Dream Team.
So prior to the 1992 Olympics, the international body of basketball banned NBA players from participating in the Olympics. Professional athletes from every other country could play, not from the NBA.
Yes.
And we were humiliated in 1988 with a bronze medal, and we convinced them to change the rules. So enter 1992, we were able to put together all the best players from the NBA.
All the best players and Christian Leitner.
I was reading about that, and Christian Leitner made the team because the amateur sports leagues were really upset that the pros came in because it used to be their highlight to get to the Olympics.
Sure.
It got taken from them.
So they picked a champion.
So as a nod to the amateurs, they picked a kid out of college, and it was between Shaquille O'Neal and Christian Leitner.
wow.
Oof.
And they picked Christian Leitner.
Choices were made.
But we made it to the Olympics. We won the gold medal. We averaged, our games were like averaging 45-point wins or something. We just smoked the world.
Yep.
We felt good about ourselves.
Well, and this was the start of the NBA really taking over as well in the 90s. The Dream Team was a phenomenon across the entire globe. And then that was, then straight into the Michael Jordan era right after that. So this was the start of NBA just taking everything over. And these guys were superstars. It was everybody. It was the old guard and the new guard. And one, Chris Mullin as well. I almost said Rich Mullin. Which, not the same guy.
Well, I'll say in defense of Chris Mullin, he won a gold medal in 1984, so this was his second time.
I'm a huge fan of Chris Mullin. Chris Mullin is one of my all-time favorite shooting players in the NBA. So, huge deal. I also have here from the sports category that Tiger Woods, I think it says he was 16, made his PGA debut, but didn't make the cut. So just throw that out there.
1992?
1992. That's what it says.
Seems early.
This says Tiger Woods' 16 PGA debut doesn't make cut. So that could mean anything, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it could have been 4.
It could mean anything.
I think you were working ahead into 1996.
Yeah, that's what I got here. So, all right, let's move on. I think we've got a lot to do with movies this time around. But I want to throw out real quick in the video game category, just one game super fast, Mario Kart.
Maybe the greatest franchise in the history of video games.
Franchise even. I'm liking what you're saying here.
Because Mario Kart kind of started, maybe not started, but perfected multiplayer gaming on the Super Nintendo. And it's one of the best-selling Super Nintendo games all time.
Yes.
But it's one of those things you'd look forward to after school, going and hanging out with your buddies, playing Mario Kart.
Yes.
Right?
And currently, Mario Kart 8 is the best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch as well. So it's always the best-selling game that Nintendo has on their.
And in the 90s, it was different. We gamed together. We sat next to each other on the couch and we played video. You had Super Mario Kart into Mario Kart 64, into GoldenEye, into just all these great multiplayer games that we all experienced together instead of on our own couches, on our devices.
Yeah. Scout, take on Mario Kart.
It's hard.
It's hard to go back.
It's hard to go back.
It's hard to go back.
Because I got the SNES Classic
Yep.
for Christmas a couple years ago, and I tried playing that with my daughter, and it's very
Oh, yeah.
floaty,
Oh,
and you wave all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
But it's great fun.
It is great fun. So
I miss the feather.
the feathers
The little
are,
feather item you can get that boing, jumps you over stuff.
well, and that was Miyamoto had said that it can't be a Mario game if there's not a jump. So that's how the feather came into existence. And it's at the same time frame as Mario World. And so a lot of the stuff in there is straight from Mario World. A lot of the courses are straight from the Mario World map. I had two things that I found that were very fascinating from that. The entire idea of the game was they were trying to make a 2-player F-Zero game. So F-Zero came out at the launch of the Super Nintendo. It's a racing game, super fast. They're like, we want to make a 2-player of this. But the problem was the way that game is made is it uses Mode 7, which basically makes a picture flat so that you can, use that as the background and the track itself. So that was like 100 screens total. And so they could make these long racetracks. In order to make it 2-player, it was only 16 screens. So they had to make it loop back and forth. And so it's just a bunch of turning and whatnot, which really slowed everything down, which then led them to change it into karts. So the whole idea of it being on go-karts is because of the
Shrink it down,
limitations. Yeah. The other thing I found really fascinating about it was due to the limitations of the system, the computer characters that you're playing against cannot pick up random items. They all have one item that they pick up that is special to them. So every item that they pick up, they don't pick up the stuff that you do. They just, if they pick up an item, it is one specific item. And I had no idea that was even the case. I've played that game so many times and I had never actually figured out that was happening.
I mean, I remember certain people having their little thing.
Yep.
Like Bowser drops little fireballs and somebody puts out mushrooms that shrink you or something.
Yep.
Donkey Kong's got the bananas.
Yeah.
But I don't remember that being the only thing.
Yeah,
You
so-
never get hit with a red shell?
No, so and that's what I was thinking too, because I was like, I clearly remember the lightning bolt getting, and evidently that was the case, was that because they made it that it's random, right? But then also based off of what lap you're on and what place you're on, there's a different calculation as to what you get. They couldn't do it with all the various racers that are on there with you. So if they pick up a power up, just get the one power up that they have.
So when you're in last place, you don't get a red shell every single time.
If you're in last place, the lightning bolt is only, I believe, on the last lap or the last 2 laps, and it's only like a 3.5% chance of getting it. Yeah, it's crazy. So
I will say that it's probably the closest calls as far as finishing a race in first or second place I've ever had in any game ever. It's just thrilling, absolutely thrilling when you're just neck and neck with somebody. And it's like going across the finish line, trying not to hit a banana peel.
yeah, fantastic game, 1992. So, all right, let's move on to the last category, and this one is pretty robust. This, of course, is movies from 1992. What do you guys got?
I got a 1992 crime caper
Okay.
called Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of
It's
it.
a classic. I love it. One of my faves. Quentin Tarantino is my favorite filmmaker. Just kind of grew up watching all of his movies. But this was about some jewel thieves and a heist that went wrong. Has a great soundtrack, DJ'd by the great Stephen Wright.
Oh,
It
nice.
was great. But this was Quentin Tarantino.
I was thinking like composed. I was like, what? No,
He's just the DJ.
Yeah.
But Quentin Tarantino in the late 80s into the 90s worked at a video store called Video Archives.
Okay.
And he started working on this film. And he expected it to be about a $30,000 budget.
Sure.
He was going to shoot it in black and white on 16 millimeter film
yeah.
on the evenings and weekends.
It was a thing that they did then.
It kind of reminds me of Coven.
Oh, yeah.
I was just about to say. Speaking of that, I was on YouTube the other day, and there was a thing just popped up, and it said, shopping at Kmart, and I think it was in 1992. It was shopping at Kmart in 1992, and I was going to send that to you guys and say, this is way better than that American movie thing you sent me. Just watching people zoom in on turkeys. I'm like, this is great. This is way better than that other horse show you guys made me watch.
The amount of hate you have for the documentary American Movie is amazing to me. It is a phenomenal piece of film history. And you just...
And I would rather watch somebody zoom in on frozen turkeys at a Kmart in
At a
1992.
blue light special.
Let's talk about the Blue Light Special, because that's 1992. That's 1992. The Blue Light Special at Kmart is one of the most bizarre things ever, but a great
You
concept.
have to be there.
You have to be there. An actual blue light would go off in a section, and that's
Oh,
where
really?
and there would be a random deal.
Interesting.
What a fucking
That's a great idea. That's almost as good as the countdown for Royal Rumble.
Okay, Gabe, hold off on Reservoir Dogs, because it is exactly like the countdown for the Royal Rumble. Scott had said, I only have one thing to talk about, and it was the 1992 Royal Rumble. And
Yeah.
Scott, go.
Yeah, I did the same thing I did in '88. I just went to YouTube and typed in 1992, and one of the first things was the Royal Rumble.
Royal Rumble.
And so I figured I better watch that.
Okay, now give us the full rundown on 1992 Royal Rumble.
It is So I took my kid to the circus a couple of years ago.
Okay, all right.
And-
you said that, yeah.
And it was a pretty good time. You know, a lot of high flying, people walking on things 100 feet in the air and stuff. But at a certain point in between acts, they bring out clowns.
Sure, yeah.
Actual clowns. People in clown costumes that walk around with big inflatable hammers
amazing.
and hit each other. And that is what watching the 1992 Royal Rumble was like. Who let these clowns into my awesome show? Get them out and bring back the cool stuff. Because it's all it's so fucking cheesy.
I will say this, the thing that I love about, like, especially old school wrestling as well, but even the new stuff, is it's essentially like watching a stunt show, right?
Right.
The cool stuff is...
There wasn't that much of it in 1992.
Well, and that's what I was
have
gonna
thought
get
that
at.
as well, and I
That's
was going into it like, oh, I wonder what kind of cool high flying things
no.
they did. None, zero cool things happened.
I also have seen the 1992 Royal Rumble recently. On purpose. I actually clicked on it as well and watched it about a month ago.
Yeah,
sadly.
you're kind of interested. Like, what was it like?
What was it
like
like?
in 1992?
And I thought the same thing, was like, oh, this is going to be kind of cool because you're going to see a couple high flying things that they've worked on, the choreography.
Right, you'll see the base, the foundation of what wrestling has become.
And instead, every minute there's a 10-second countdown, which is amazing. It's
Yeah.
one of the greatest things in showmanship.
Yeah,
because the
honestly-
entire crowd is going nuts.
Honestly, I skipped most of the thing. just like
watch the
skip ahead
countdowns?
just to get to the countdown and see who comes out. But every time somebody comes out, there's a countdown. Everybody gets really excited,
Yep.
and the fog comes out, and then somebody steps through, and nobody knows who the fuck it is. So it's just like everybody's like, "Oh, who's it gonna be?" Okay,
it's you again.
just completely deflates
you again.
every time.
And then, very shortly after the beginning, there are 20 people in a wrestling ring, which is not big enough for 20 people to
No.
do anything cool. And so it is just a couple dudes over in the corner having a conversation with one another, like, hey, I don't know, how much longer we got to do this for?
Right.
Eventually, they pick somebody up and throw them over the ropes, and here comes the next one.
Yeah, like there is very little choreography.
I would argue there is no choreography.
It's yeah.
That'd be tough.
I'm going to get you with the face slap now.
I mean, Ric Flair ends up winning. He was the third one
Spoiler
in.
alert.
He was, yeah, duh. We're
1992.
talking about it. I'm sorry. Are you gonna not spoil Reservoir Dogs in a second here?
The best part of Ric Flair winning is that he comes on and immediately one of the announcers is saying how no one has ever won the Royal Rumble from that early of a starting position. So, I can see where this is going.
Yeah. And I didn't watch much wrestling growing up. I obviously know who Ric Flair is.
Yes.
And he looked 70 years old in 1992, and and now still looks like he aged about 1 year.
No, now in the last couple of years he's aged
Right.
quite a few, but yes.
He was pretty fascinating to watch. His little he always know, because all he ever does is get clotheslined, and you can see it coming from a mile away because he just stiffens up like this every time. And there multiple times throughout the thing, he literally gets down onto his knees and begs.
Yep.
He goes, "No,
Yep.
no."
Yep,
I was
a
like, "Who is
classic.
this? Who is this guy? Why am I
That's
supposed to
Nature
root
Boy.
for this guy?"
You're not supposed to.
He's the bad guy.
He is the bad guy.
Okay.
Favorite wrestler that participates in that?
I don't know about his favorite that participates in it, but his entrance, like 6 or 7 in, is someone called the Repo Man, who is from a completely different universe from all the other wrestlers. So everybody comes out and they're wrestlers, right? But then this Repo Man guy comes out and he looks like an old school bandit.
Yep.
He looked like a raccoon.
Old timey thief.
Yeah. And he comes out and he's all hunched over. He looks like freaking. Did you ever play the Sly?
Sly Cooper.
Sly Cooper
Yeah,
games.
yeah,
He
yeah.
looks exactly like
Yes.
that guy.
Yes.
But he comes out and he's all hunched over and he looks around and the announcers are like, he doesn't even know where he's going. and then he sneaks up onto the ring
Like a cartoon.
like
character.
a cartoon character. I mean, they're all cartoon
Yes, yes,
characters,
they are,
but he is very much more
After
cartoon.
a countdown and the fall,
After
he is
a
sneaking.
countdown, he sneaks up. After it was counted down, we're like, there he is. Where did he go?
I can't see him with the mask.
And then he just sneaks around the ring for a little bit, and then he comes in and gets his ass kicked. But then I found out that apparently there were two guys years earlier called Smash and Axel, I think.
All right.
And I think, were they not?
I don't know.
Who were the two guys in the wrestling game with the spikes on their
Oh,
shoulders?
no. That is Hawk and Animal.
Okay.
That's the
okay,
Road
Road
Warriors.
Warriors,
okay.
Slash Legion of Doom.
Okay, so I had read that it was
Speaking
one
of
of these
Zubaz,
guys.
speaking of Zubaz. All right, enough about 1992 Royal Rumble. That was a solid 10 minutes.
Well, okay, but I also need to talk. So Hulk Hogan makes an appearance, and Hulk Hogan in 1992. I don't know if he had a bigger repertoire of moves earlier or later.
He's got a couple.
1992. The only thing he does through the entire Royal Rumble is primarily he's attacking Roddy Piper, but his move is to claw at his eyes.
Like
And
like a kitten.
Yeah, he goes
Not like a cat.
He puts his
Like a
hands on
kitten.
a forehead, and then he rips his hands down, and the guy goes ah, and then he does it again, and he goes ah, and then Roddy Piper does it to Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan says ah. What are you supposed to be doing? What is supposed to be happening?
People bought tickets. This isn't just on television.
Yeah.
People bought tickets.
Oh, there's I mean at least 30,000 people in a stadium.
A lot of people.
But I rewound that a lot to watch. Try to rip his eyeballs or rip his nose off or something. I don't know what he's doing.
People, do yourself a favor and watch yourself the 1992 Royal Rumble. Anyways, back to
So Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs.
So Quentin Tarantino's trying to get this movie made.
Yeah.
Really low budget. Somehow the script gets onto Harvey Keitel's desk.
Yep.
He likes it. He pulls together some money and gets like $1 million. So this has still low budget, but has some money.
Yep.
Right. The actors still have to show up in their own clothes. There's no costume department, but Harvey Keitel said if this is going to be a gangster movie, we're not going to cast in L.A. We got to go up to New York and do casting calls.
Okay.
So they go up to New York and they casted Steve Buscemi, Michael Madsen, and Tim Roth,
Crazy.
who are three just consistent Quentin Tarantino actors.
Yep.
So luckily they got that. And then the movie was made and was a pretty good success, but over time it's become a huge classic
huge
indie film
success.
that everybody loves. But in 1995, Video Archives, the video store he worked at, went out of business. So he bought all of the inventory
Oh,
and he rebuilt the video store in his house.
that's awesome.
Fast forward to 2022, Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery, who helped screenwrite
He's a
Pulp
screenwriter.
Fiction,
Yep.
started a podcast called the Video Archives Podcast,
Oh, man.
where they are watching VHS tapes from the old movie store they worked at in the 80s and then recapping it every episode. So
That's awesome.
big full circle there for Quentin Tarantino.
We should definitely watch that. Huge fan of Reservoir Dogs. I like it a lot. Pulp Fiction was kind of the beginning of my love affair with his movies, and there's some really cool stuff in I think, isn't it 95? Is it 90? In one of the years coming up when we talk about Pulp Fiction, there's gonna be some pretty cool stuff to talk about with that. But yeah, it's crazy that just a guy that was working at a video store just said, I know movies and I'm going to start writing movies, and then had a string of successful movies that he had written and then got to make Reservoir Dogs. And then it was just kind of one of those things where like people were like, we are going to give you money to make movies.
What else did he write? Was it True Romance?
True Romance.
Natural Born Killers.
They destroyed Natural Born Killers, so that wasn't anywhere near what he wrote.
Yeah. Well, but still though, just a dude
Somebody
working-
bought it.
Yeah. Someone bought a script that a guy working at a movie
And
store wrote.
he never went to film school. He never went to acting classes. He worked at a movie store and watched movies 24 hours a day or at all waking hours, and that was his film school. That's how he learned how to make film.
It is Coven. You are 100% correct. It is Coven. All right, let's move on to a couple more movies here. We'll go a little fast speed round on these. I've got one here, My Cousin Vinny. You guys are fans of My Cousin Vinny?
I know I
Yes.
should be, but I've never seen it.
Oh, I can't believe you've never seen My Cousin Vinny. It's just,
I've seen a couple of clips, in particular the one where what the hell happens? Somebody's talking to the judge,
yes.
and the judge can't understand what he says, and he says his hua, and then Joe
couple
Pesci
of
says, well, yeah, a couple of utes, wah, huh, yeah, wah, and they just say what back to each other a couple times.
To what?
What?
Did you say utes?
Yeah, 2 utes.
What is a ute?
So now that's what you think that movie is, right? That encapsulates what that movie is, but it's actually a really, really good movie. Marissa Tomei won Best Supporting Actress for that on a movie that you think could just be a throwaway, kind of little comedy. The Joe Pesci obviously plays a lawyer because I don't even does he has his law degree, but he's never actually been involved in a trial. Lies that he's been involved in a trial, and then is just fumbling his way through it.
But he knows his car tires.
But no, she knows her car tires. Marissa Tomei is a fantastic part of that movie. But the one thing I wanted to add was that according to the internet, and I cannot confirm this, I spent way too much time trying to confirm this.
About 8 minutes.
No, this
way.
was a couple hours. this was the entire time that I watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which we'll get to next.
Oh boy.
The term "dead on balls accurate" is supposedly originated in that film. So I don't know if that's
And whether that statement is dead on balls accurate, we'll never know.
we will never know, but the internet thinks it is. Since I brought it up, I'm just going to say super fast the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In this movie, Christy Swanson plays Sarah Michelle Gellar, and it is absolutely awful. It is one of the worst movies that I've ever watched. I know that there are a lot of people out there that like the TV show and then the spin-offs that came from the TV show. I know there are a lot of people that like Joss
Was that
Whedon.
a film that came out in 1992?
It was a film that came out in 1992. Joss Whedon wrote it.
The screenplay.
Yeah, he wrote the screenplay for it. Which, by the way, he's also credited as writing the screenplay for Toy Story. By the way, such a weird gulf of things. But this movie is awful. It's trying to be campy, but it's doing it in a way that is just annoying and dumb.
Well, maybe now. Maybe in 1992, it was fresh.
Well, in 1992, people were pawing each other's faces in a ring full of 20 people, so maybe it was fresh. Under the umbrella of things that were happening, Zubaz and pawing of faces, I take it back. But the one thing from this movie is there is a death scene involving Paul Rubens, who is Pee Wee Herman. And he dies, and it does this super campy thing where he's like, and it's trying to be campy. The movie thinks it's a lot funnier than it is, and it lets it play out for far too long. And it thinks it's so funny that at the end of the movie, then during the credits, it shows a longer version of it again. So it's like,
Hey, we did cut it.
you guys, no. So here's the deal: if you like the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if you like Angel, if you like Joss Whedon's later works, including the Marvel stuff, fantastic. That's great. This movie is terrible. It is absolutely awful. So don't waste your time.
Ooh, ah, ow, ooh, ah, ah, ah,
I'm going to waste my time. I fully intend to waste my time tonight.
Do either of you got any more movies or anything? I've got a couple more things to go through. Scott, do you got anything else?
Nah.
I like that. That's a good way to be, because otherwise we're going to go another hour long on this. I wanted to do just two more. The one I've got is the movie Mighty Ducks. You guys heard of the movie Mighty Ducks?
Love the movie Mighty Ducks.
Yeah. Minnesota.
Also
The start of a good run for Minnesota films.
start of a very good run for Minnesota films. And I would say whatever we were doing then in terms of tax write-offs and incentives, let's get back to that. Because everything was filmed in Minnesota when we were kids. Like everything. I can think
Mallrats and the Mighty Ducks.
Those are the only two I can think of.
And Fargo.
of Mallrats,
yes.
Mighty Ducks, Fargo, Jingle All the Way.
Oh, yep.
I'm trying to think of, it was filmed at the Metrodome, so Little Big League. Yeah, it was just a run of movies that were all so Minnesota-centric. However, The Mighty Ducks is a great movie. Obviously, most people have seen it. I greatly appreciate it. But the thing I want to talk about real fast is there's a little part of that movie that sticks out to me quite a bit now, and it is the role of one Hans. I don't know if you guys remember Hans at all. You remember Hans?
He owned the hockey shop.
Hans owns the hockey shop.
Never not sharpening a skate.
No.
At all times.
At all times. At all times. It's so much so that there's a scene in that really makes you scratch your head a little bit now as an adult. So Hans is at late night, of course, sharpening the skate, and Gordon Bombay comes in and you hear a little ding, 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 ding of the door in the back. And without even looking up, Hans just says, "Gordon." And Emilio says, "How did you know?" And Hans says, "Back door, this time of night? Who else could it be?"
Oh, scandalous.
Scandalous. Even more scandalous because then he, of course, does his signature move, which is where he runs his thumb across the blade.
Oh, yeah.
And ooh, and pretends to cut. And then Gordon gets in close. And while they're holding hands, he just looks him in the eye and says, "You always used to fall for that one." So I don't know if you feel the same way that I feel, but Hans is a molester.
That's a little suspect.
Changes all of the movies, including the second one where I believe Hans is gone, seeing his dying mother. And then he comes back for the third one. Don't worry, he's back.
The one big casualty from the Mighty Ducks was released shortly before the Mighty Ducks was the movie Ladybugs.
Okay, all right, same movie.
It's a youth soccer team this time. Youth soccer team. And Rodney Dangerfield is the coach. And his girls aren't winning very many games, and he needs a little bit of help. So he convinces a young man to just pretend to be a girl for the rest of the movie. And the team gets really good. But they didn't have the box office success
No,
of the Mighty Ducks.
no, they did not. Kids sports movies were big in the 90s. Big.
Oh, yeah.
There's a good run. 1993, we're going to talk about Rookie of the Year. So that's coming up as well. The last one I got, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here, was actually a viewer suggestion. And this is the movie White Men Can't Jump. Are you guys familiar with White Men Can't Jump?
A little bit.
I remember enjoying the movie. I remember thinking it was pretty well done. Gabe, I think you said before we started that you liked all basketball movies at that
Loved
point.
all basketball movies growing up.
Yeah, and this is a pretty good one. Interesting premise, right? So it starts off, and as you can imagine, the philosophy of this movie is that the white men
Cannot jump?
Cannot jump.
Okay.
So they casted a guy from Indiana
Yes.
who can shoot the ball really well.
Who can shoot the ball, which is actually a pretty cool thing. In the little bit of backstory you get on him is he went to a college in Bump, Indiana, which of course is kind of a Larry Bird reference.
Bird,
yeah. But they say
It's Jordan and Bird on the same team.
so he moves out to California because nobody will know who he is. So he can hustle, right? And his big thing is he makes himself look like a dweeb.
Dope.
Yeah.
Makes him dopey.
The problem with this movie is that the premise of the white man can't jump implies that the black man can jump. And who do they get to represent the black man in this film?
Wesley Snipes.
All 5'9" of Wesley Snipes.
Doesn't mean he can't jump.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've seen the movie, and Wesley Snipes cannot jump.
Well, he's really fast.
You would assume this is a movie about dunking the basketball. This movie is a movie about layups. Nothing but layups the entire time. Everyone does layups. To so much so that the very start of the movie, the first time you see Wesley Snipes, is him blocking someone's layup. And I'm going to tell you, if he got to the net, I would be surprised. So I don't know if you know anything about Wesley Snipes, but I hear, and this goes back to the Major League stuff as well. From what I hear, not a great athlete.
Not a good taxpayer either.
A couple of things he's not great at. But yeah, the movie White Men Can't Jump is actually a very good movie. Interesting music choices as well. It starts off with a little doo-wop group out on the beach. But it teaches.
Sounds like basketball to me.
Yeah, it's a weird mix
It's
of.
like a barbershop quartet or some shit.
It absolutely is. This movie teaches you a couple things. Is that in the end, white men can jump. However, that's after 2 hours, and there's a point where this movie ends, and then there's still 20 minutes of it. But the other thing it teaches you is that Latinos are very good at trivia, because his girlfriend her goal is to get on Jeopardy, and so the whole movie she's just training for when.
And then she dominates.
She's training for when Jeopardy's going to call, okay? But the problem is that Jeopardy isn't calling. And so the way to win her back is that our good friend Woody Harrelson is going to convince the security guard that is running the lot for this film studio to let her on. And the way he does it is by hitting a sweet sky hook. So he hits
Forgot all about that.
He hits the sky hook. She's allowed to get on the lot, and that somehow means that she's on Jeopardy. Because if I know anything about game shows, it's that, especially game shows about trivia, it's that the security guard lets someone on the lot, and they therefore are on the show.
Yep. They just go prowl the parking lot. Anybody here want to be on Jeopardy?
We trust you because Joe over here let you in. So, of course, she does very well. And it's really a movie about the white guy being a complete screw up. That's really what it's all about.
Loses the girl,
but he's gonna win. That's his big thing. He's gonna.
So
win.
is he's trying to hustle people as a job to make money to pay for things?
So
then at the end, his girlfriend ends up getting on Jeopardy and making all the money.
Yeah. So
So his entire arc doesn't matter at all.
I'll go even further than that. His entire arc doesn't matter, and also that's the end of the movie. Okay. Then there are 20 minutes left of this movie because he decides to then bet it all again, and she goes, "See you later, I'm gone." And so she leaves, and there's 20 minutes of them going to make more money because he's got to prove that he can jump. It is the most bizarre choice of an extra 20 minutes of a movie I've ever seen. However,
so then what the hell's the point of the movie?
That he can jump, goddammit. Wesley Snipes is 5'9" and cannot jump. There is a point where Wesley Snipes jumps up and grabs the rim. I'm convinced that didn't happen because I've seen him jump throughout the whole movie. He didn't get that rim. There's no way.
Which is really funny because in the couple of clips I watched, I thought, man, Wesley Snipes looks like a pretty good athlete.
I don't think so. From what I've heard, Wesley Snipes not a good athlete.
Interesting.
Good action star. That'd make a good athlete.
He's 5'9". I mean, this is Muggsy Bogues.
So am I.
Out there. Well, yeah, but you ain't dunking either.
No, I'm not.
And you look more like Woody Harrelson. Anyways,
Rude.
Quite a bit.
Telling my wife you said that. She'll love it.
The beauty of talking about White Man Can't Jump is that there's actually a remake that just came out on Hulu.
Oh, it's out. I watched the trailer.
Yep, just came out in May, so it's brand new. I watched 20 minutes of it, and then was like, okay, I get it. I'm good to go. Thank you. However, I will say this about that: instead of it just being that he just didn't make it in college, they go get right down to explaining why white men can't jump, because in this version the white man has 2 blown knees and literally cannot jump.
White man can't jump.
White man can't jump. That white man can't jump.
So I don't know where that movie goes. All I know is that he is a pill popper who also only eats lettuce, and
It seems pointless to remake it because Steph Curry has changed the game.
Yes.
There's not a lot of jumping in basketball anymore.
No.
It's a lot of 3-point shots and long rebounds.
Yes.
You have to be able to chase down a long rebound and shoot from a distance.
Yes.
That's what basketball is now.
Yeah. I don't know for sure where the movie goes, but it's definitely one of those we need money, so we're going to hustle type of things. I will say this, that speaking of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that movie starts with some cheerleaders in a gymnasium. You would be hard-pressed to convince me that it is not the same gymnasium in the remake of White Men Can't Jump that they start off in. It's very similar, at least in my mind, having watched 2 back-to-back.
After seeing 2 gymnasiums
They look
back
very
to back.
similar.
Yeah, it looks just like that other gym.
This is the same gym!
Wait, 2 basketball hoops?
Yeah, well, that. I've seen this before.
I know where this ends. It ends with Jeopardy.
Yeah, it was in slam dunk earnest too.
At least there was Slam Dunk Ernest.
Slam Dunk
Find
Ernest.
out what year that is because we're definitely talking about Slam Dunk Ernest. All right,
It's
ladies.
the only other basketball movie I can think of off the top of my head.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is 1992 in a nutshell. There's plenty of other things that happened, but we may actually do revisiting of these again. We may do a rewind, maybe a fast forward rewind. But yeah, so anything else you guys got for 1992 before we get out of here?
I don't think so.
I think you could probably do another 20 minutes.
Yeah, I could talk about WrestleMania more if you want. Sorry, Royal Rumble. There was only one time throughout the entire thing that I saw something where I was like, that guy did his job. And it was Sergeant Slaughter getting thrown out of the ring.
Yeah.
The only time I saw something where I was like, that dude sold the out of that move. Nice. He hit the turnbuckle so goddamn hard and flipped over it. I was like, that looked like it hurt.
Yeah, I love stunt shows, so that should be right up my alley. That's one of my favorite things from childhood is going to stunt shows like at Universal Studios and stuff. The Miami Vice one, the Wild West ones. I used to love those. I thought they were awesome. Then the Waterworld one, which will be coming up here in a couple months. Yeah, those I love that stuff. So it should be awesome. Not 1992. 1992 Royal Rumble is exactly what you said.
It's a literal clown show.
It is a literal clown show. And with that, we're done.
There's another part in the Royal Rumble. At the very end.
20 minutes on it.
At the very end, what the hell is this guy's name? Gene, the bald guy with the mustache,
yeah.
He interviews all the wrestlers, whatever.
Yeah. Is it Mean Gene?
Mean Gene, I think. Yeah. And he just is starting to interview Ric Flair, and he's like, Ric Flair, you just won the blah blah. Put that cigarette out. And he goes back to talking to that guy. He like yells at somebody off screen. It's so funny. Just so out of the blue. It's like, Ric Flair, you just finally want to put that cigarette out. So anyways, he just goes back to it.
High production value.
High production.
Great.
Ric Flair, you have made world. Put that cigarette out.